The largest trial for a potential COVID-19 vaccine began on Monday. Well, Moderna started its trial on 30,000 planned volunteers, helping to test shots under its partnership with the U.S. National Institutes of Health. Volunteers will either receive a real shot or a placebo. After 2 doses, scientists will evaluate the results to see if it can prevent symptomatic COVID-19. Now, the first test site to begin vaccinating is in Savannah, Georgia. And a total of more than 70 testing sites will be used across the country. Well, phase 1 results published earlier this month showed the vaccine was generally safe and had only mild side effects. This included fatigue and even muscle pain. Well, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention says that typically a phase 1 study consists of a small number of people to see if a vaccine is safe and elicits an immune response. Well, phase 2 is then expanded and a vaccine is given to people who have characteristics such as age and physical health, similar to those for whom the new vaccine is intended. And in phase 3, the vaccine is then tested for efficacy and safety. Well, normally it takes years to create a new vaccine. Scientists are working at a record pace. They're really just hoping to have an experimental version available for health workers by this fall. And as a Moderna vaccine, which now leads the way in terms of development, the Senate Republicans have 1 week to get another coronavirus stimulus bill done before unemployment benefits run out. A lot to get to today, so to help us break it down, we're joined by Jeffrey Tucker, editorial director of the American Institute for Economic Research, and Boomba's co-host and investigative journalist, Ben Swan. Ben, let's start with the latest on Moderna and this vaccine. We know that 30,000 people will take part in this trial, but what do we know about how this trial is being conducted?
Yeah, Sarah, we know a couple things. You did a great job of breaking down here how this all works. And the reality is Moderna is not the only one doing this. Pfizer is very close, they say, to conducting their own 30,000 person trial. That's a lot of people to be testing these vaccines. I do want to say something about Moderna, though. When you look at Moderna, they obviously have a relationship with the National Institutes of Health that is different than other entities. And the reason for that is because the NIH and Moderna signed a contract back in December. That contract was to begin studying coronaviruses, not this particular strain, but coronaviruses in general, and developing essentially artificial RNA sequences that could be used to create vaccines. It's somewhat questionable. It's never really been done before. Moderna is the first to do this, so they're doing it in partnership with the NIH. And I think, when you lay it out right now, those 3 phases of vaccine trials, there's actually a phase before all of that happens before you get to human trials, and that's animal testing. Moderna actually skipped over that step, and that's a highly unusual thing. It's not illegal, but a highly unusual thing to have happen. So the fact that they're now entering this massive human trial, I think there's some people who are concerned, others are hopeful.
Well, it's very interesting because timing is of the essence with this. Jeffrey, we know that even if these trials are successful, it could take until sometime even next year before an actual vaccine hits the market. We talked about it being available to healthcare workers this fall, but it really wouldn't hit the market till possibly next year to really keep the economy moving forward again. Is this what it's going to take to reopen the full economy and get it moving to where we saw it before?
You're right. There's immense challenges in production and distribution, mass distribution of these things. We saw even with testing that the U.S. has done a horrible job at distributing tests. I mean, even now it's actually very difficult to get tested, and some of the tests don't come back for 7 to 10 days. So there's immense challenges in distribution. But you're right that many in the political class have decided that we're just really never going to become a normal country until we have this vaccine. And let's be clear, this isn't like a smallpox vaccine or polio vaccine that lasts a lifetime. This is really just an immunity booster that lasts for an uncertain amount of time. And to tell you the truth, I think there's a lot more public skepticism towards, what Ben said is basically an untested immunity booster than the political class believes. And even the flu vaccines are not taken by as many as 40% of the population takes those things every year. And it's going to be very difficult for these things to be widely distributed. So I don't believe they will be, not for a very long time. But on the other hand, there is a kind of a psychological boost that comes from this. If the markets really believe that the politicians are going to open up until we get a vaccine, this is going to be very good news.
Well, that's exactly it. You mentioned the importance of this, the distribution of it, how whether or not people are actually going to go out and run, get in line to get this vaccine is another issue. And the fact that they skipped over the animal testing, much like Ben mentioned, is extremely important. Just the expediting of this vaccine, how safe is it? And in terms of, okay, short-term effects, but we could look at some long-term damages that we won't see for years. Ben, I want to ask one more question though about Moderna. The company stock actually tumbled on Thursday after the company lost a patent battle that actually may jeopardize the financial future of its vaccine. Well, what happened and why is it such a big deal?
Yeah, essentially, there was a hearing on Thursday, and Moderna unsuccessfully, they argued before a U.S. Patent Trial Court, and this was the company that they were suing. Its patents held by Arbutus Biopharma, covering lipid nanoparticle, or LNP technology. In short, it is technology that allows Moderna to create their particular mRNA 1273. That is the strand that they're using in the vaccine. The reason this is important, Sarah, is because it is that mRNA that Moderna is using to create an artificial vaccine. This is very important for people to understand. Moderna is not using coronavirus to create a vaccine. They have an artificial strand that they have created using mRNA in order to say, instead of using the actual virus, we'll do this artificial one. It'll be safer. It'll attach to your system and cause spike proteins, and that'll cause immunity. But what this lawsuit essentially shows is that Moderna does not hold a true patent on this. Neither does the NIH. So in theory, if Moderna were able to create this vaccine, they wouldn't be the only ones who would be able to create it. It's important there. And can I say one more thing? It's important to remember this. Pharmaceutical companies have never been slow about creating drugs. The idea that suddenly, because there is a desire for a coronavirus vaccine, that everyone says, oh, we'll suddenly work faster. I think pretty much Big Pharma has maximized as quickly as they can make a vaccine. So the idea that we can suddenly do it now because of sheer willpower doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how this all plays out. But I want to shift gears here a little bit, Jeffrey. We know that increased unemployment benefits from earlier this year are set to expire later this week. Senate Republicans, they announced a new $1 trillion stimulus plan is about to extend them, but to lower the amount from $600 a week to $200. Is that even fair to workers?
That's a difficult. What's fair? What's fair? I don't know. A lot of people have been made unemployed by governments themselves. I think from a lot of workers' point of view, they're like, oh, I didn't want to be unemployed, so somehow the political system owes me money to compensate for what the lockdowns did to me, and I completely understand that. On the other hand, just from an economic point of view, paying people not to work is a very bad idea, and what it's actually doing is rewarding the political class for these egregious lockdowns that keep going on and on and on. So what the Republicans may be thinking is, okay, let's incentivize people to go back to work, and then they'll put a little more pressure on their political leaders to open up the economy. So in a sense, it's probably strategically pretty smart, even if it does seem a little bit unfair.
Ben, quick answer here, but what else is in this plan?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a couple things. They want to do another round of $1,200 stimulus checks. Nancy Pelosi's not going to sign off on this deal, though, I don't think. She wants a $3 trillion stimulus, and Democrats want to keep these $600 checks. The problem is Republicans have a very short goal line between now and November. It's difficult to say we're going to cut that unemployment from 600 to 200, even though they should, because what Jeffrey said is absolutely true. The political class is essentially saying you can make more money on unemployment. Right. We'll just keep sending checks to people and we'll make them happy. Democrats say they want to do it till the end of the year. I think Democrats win this fight.
Yeah, and it would be ideal if people would just prefer to go back to work, which I'm sure many do, but there are definitely some that are making more money off unemployment.
Not if you make more money. Yeah, not if you make more money.
Exactly. Well,
and also a lot of jobs have been destroyed. A lot of people just can't go back to work
right.
Just because
and who knows when they'll come back, especially if people who, for example, work in restaurants or in hospitality, that who knows to what extent or when it will come back to 100%. Like we were seeing before. Jeffrey Tucker, editorial director with the American Institute for Economic Research, and Boomba's co-host, Ben Swan. Thank you so much for that report.
Thanks.
The latest tip